Those 7 words spoken by a tall stranger in a flowing white robe changed my life forever. Come with me. Trust me, they will regret this. I was sitting on the cold marble floor of Dubai International Airport, shaking, starving, completely alone, when he stopped right in front of me and looked down at the crying American girl, surrounded by gold shops she couldn't afford to breathe near. But let me back up 4 hours to the moment I realized my own mother had left me behind. I was 14 years old, standing at gate 23, watching the plane to Bangkok taxi down the runway with my family on it and me very much not. Just me, a skinny kid in an oversized t-shirt, slowly understanding that my mother had looked at my brother, believed his lies, and walked onto that plane without a single glance back. She didn't lose me in the crowd or get confused. She left me on purpose. And 4 hours later, when police called her in Bangkok, when she found out what her golden boy had really been planning, when she discovered this wasn't about a vacation, but about $600,000, her face went white as a corpse. To understand why this moment was actually the best thing that ever happened to me, you need to know just how invisible I'd been my whole life. My name is Molly Underwood. I'm 32 now and I run a successful import-export business. But back then at 14, I was basically the family's background character. You know how some people light up a room when they walk in? I was the opposite. I was human wallpaper, the kind of kid who could sit at the dinner table and somehow still be invisible. My mother, Patricia, worked double shifts as a hospital administrator. She'd been doing it ever since my father died when I was 6. Dad's death hit our family hard, but it hit my brother Spencer the hardest. Or at least that's what my mother always believed. Spencer was 9 when we lost Dad. And from that moment on, he became the man of the house in my mother's eyes. Spencer was 3 years older than me, star quarterback, straight teeth, the kind of smile that made teachers forget he hadn't done his homework. He could do no wrong. And I mean that literally. In 17 years. I never once saw my mother blame Spencer for anything. If something broke, I did it. If money went missing, I must have taken it. If there was a conflict, I started it. I learned early that fighting back was pointless. So, I became the easy one, the quiet one, the one who never complained, never demanded attention, never made waves. I thought if I was good enough, small enough, invisible enough, eventually my mother would see me. She never did. My grandmother, Nora, Dad's mother, lived in Tucson, about 2 hours from our place in Phoenix. Spencer used to stay with her during summers when Mom worked extra shifts. Grandma Nora was the only person who seemed to notice I existed. She'd send me books in the mail, call me on my birthday when Mom forgot, and tell me stories about my father when I was little. But she was getting older and I didn't see her as much as I wished I could. The summer I turned 14, something shifted. I got accepted into an elite arts program. A big deal. Full scholarship. The kind of thing that should have made my mother proud. For one brief moment, the spotlight was on me. Spencer hated it. He didn't say anything directly, but I could feel his resentment like a cold draft in the room. He started making little comments about how art programs were a waste of time, how I was probably going to embarrass the family, how the scholarship was probably a mistake. My mother didn't defend me. She just changed the subject. About a week before our vacation, something strange happened. I came home early from school, half-day, teacher meetings, and I heard Spencer's voice coming from his room. His door was cracked open, and he was on the phone with someone. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but his words stopped me cold. "The trust fund," he said. "And she can't find out. Once I turn 18, it's handled." I accidentally stepped on a creaky board, and he came rushing out, slamming his door behind him. "Were you spying on me?" His face was red, angry. "I just got home." "I wasn't stay out of my business, Molly." "I mean it." He pushed past me and went downstairs. I stood there for a long moment, confused. What trust fund? What was he talking about? I didn't understand it then. I wish I had. A few days later, we left for our big family vacation. Mom had won a trip to Thailand through her workplace lottery, some hospital raffle thing. It was our first real vacation in years, and I was genuinely excited. 2 weeks in Thailand, beaches, temples, adventure. The flight route took us from Phoenix to Dubai for a 6-hour layover, then on to Bangkok. I packed light, 1 suitcase. Spencer brought 3. I remember making a joke to myself about it, how I'd learned not to take up space in this family, even in the luggage compartment. The flight to Dubai was long, but I didn't mind. I had a window seat, and I spent most of it reading and watching movies. Spencer and Mom sat together a few rows ahead of me. Every now and then, I'd see them laughing about something, and I'd feel that familiar pang of being left out, but I pushed it down like I always did. When we landed in Dubai, I was exhausted but amazed. That airport was incredible, like a palace made of glass and marble. The bathroom I used had better lighting than my entire school. There were gold shops and designer stores and restaurants that looked like they belonged in a magazine. I wandered around with my mouth half open, feeling like a peasant who'd stumbled into a royal court. My fashion choices didn't help. I was wearing my favorite oversized band t-shirt, some rock group I barely listened to anymore, and jeans that were slightly too long because I'd bought them on sale. I looked exactly like what I was, a 14-year-old kid from Arizona who had no idea what she was doing. Spencer suggested we split up to explore the terminal during our layover. He said he'd take Mom to look at the Gold Souk area and I could go check out the bookstore. I was actually happy about it. Peace was rare in my family, and I wanted to enjoy the alone time. Before I left, Spencer offered to hold my backpack. You don't want to lug that around everywhere. I'll keep it safe. My passport was in that backpack, my boarding pass, my emergency cash, $40 my grandmother had given me before the trip. I handed it to him without thinking. Why wouldn't I trust my brother? I wish I could go back to that moment. I wish I could grab that girl by the shoulders and tell her to hold on to her bag like her life depended on it. Because in a way it did. I went to the bathroom, spent maybe 15 minutes browsing the bookstore, and then headed back to our meeting spot near Gate 23. Spencer and my mother were gone. I waited 30 minutes, 45. I told myself they'd gotten distracted shopping, lost track of time, but a sick feeling was growing in my stomach. Finally, I found an information desk and asked about our flight to Bangkok. The woman behind the counter typed something into her computer, then looked at me with concern. That flight has already boarded, dear. It's taxiing to the runway now. No, that's my family is on that flight. I'm supposed to be on that flight. She checked again. Patricia Underwood boarded. Spencer Underwood boarded. Molly Underwood. No show. My heart stopped. My vision blurred. I think I asked her to repeat it 3 times before the words actually reached my brain. They left me. My mother and my brother got on that plane and flew to Thailand without me. And as I stood there frozen, I had no idea that in less than 2 hours, I would discover exactly why. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, please subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I see every single comment, and it means so much to me. Thank you for your support. Now, back to the story. I stood at that information desk completely frozen. The woman behind the counter was talking, asking if I was okay, if there was someone she could call, but her voice sounded like it was coming through water. Everything felt distant, unreal. My family had left me. My own mother had gotten on an airplane and flown away without her 14-year-old daughter. A security officer approached me, asked for my passport. I don't have it, I whispered. My brother has it. Your boarding pass? He has that, too. The officer exchanged a look with the woman behind the counter. I could see them calculating. Unaccompanied minor, no documents, no family, no explanation. I found out later, much later, exactly what Spencer had done. When I went to the bathroom, he went straight to the gate. He told the airline staff that I was traveling with other family members on a later flight because we'd bought individual tickets, not a family package. Some deal through my mother's work lottery. There were no red flags. The gate agent just checked his name, checked my mother's name, and let them board. But before that, he'd had a conversation with my mother. He told her I'd thrown a massive tantrum in the bathroom. He said I'd been chatting online with some boy I met on the internet and was trying to find him in Dubai. He claimed I screamed at him. Said I hated the family and wanted to be left alone forever. My mother, exhausted, stressed, conditioned by years of believing whatever Spencer said, took his word for it. She didn't come looking for me. She didn't ask to speak to me herself. She just nodded, tight-lipped and furious, and followed Spencer onto that plane. She thought she was teaching me a lesson about gratitude, about not being dramatic, about knowing my place. She had no idea she was leaving her daughter stranded in a foreign country because her son was a liar. But I didn't know any of that yet. All I knew was that I was completely alone. No passport. Spencer had taken it from my backpack. No money. My $40 of emergency cash was in the same bag. No phone. My mother had confiscated it before the trip because she wanted to limit screen time during vacation. I didn't even know my mother's phone number by heart. Like most teenagers, I relied on my contacts list. I could have told you her number started with a 6, maybe, but beyond that, nothing. An airline employee offered to try calling her for me. They pulled up her number from the booking records and dialed. It went straight to voicemail. She'd put her phone on airplane mode like a responsible passenger. The irony was not lost on me. Security kept asking questions. Where was I from? Where were my parents? Did I have any relatives in the UAE? Did I know anyone I could contact? I had no answers. Just tears and panic and a growing realization that I was completely utterly alone in one of the world's largest airports halfway around the world from home. They brought me to a small security office while they figured out what to do with me. A kind woman gave me water and tissues, but I could see the concern on her face. I was a problem. An international incident waiting to happen. I sat in that office for what felt like hours, though it was probably only 45 minutes. My mind kept racing, circling back to the same questions. Why would Spencer do this? Why wouldn't Mom check on me herself? Why didn't anyone come looking for me? And then, unbidden, his voice echoed in my head. The trust fund. She can't find out. Once I turned 18, Spencer was turning 18 in 3 months. I didn't know anything about a trust fund. My mother never talked about my father's finances, just that we were comfortable and that she worked hard to keep us that way. But Spencer knew something. He'd been hiding something. And now he'd left me stranded in Dubai 3 weeks before our father's estate would be accessible to him. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't sibling rivalry gone wrong. This was something bigger. And I was starting to realize exactly how much danger I was in. Eventually, security didn't have more questions for me, so they released me back into the terminal with vague instructions to wait near the main concourse while they contacted the embassy. I wandered dazed until I found a corner near a cafe and slid down to sit on the cold marble floor. The tears came then, hot and fast. I tried to muffle them with my hands, tried not to make a scene, but I couldn't stop. I watch families walk by. Kids holding their parents' hands, laughing, safe. A little girl about 5 years old dropped her stuffed bear and her father immediately scooped it up and handed it back to her, kissing the top of her head. Such a small gesture, such a normal gesture. I couldn't remember the last time my mother had touched me with that kind of tenderness. Maybe Spencer was right. Maybe I was unlovable. Maybe I was just a burden, a mistake, someone the family would be better off without. My stomach growled loudly, cutting through my self-pity. I hadn't eaten in at least 8 hours. The last thing I'd had was a stale airplane croissant somewhere over Europe, and that felt like a lifetime ago. I looked around at the gleaming stores, Gucci, Prada, Chanel. The airport was dripping with luxury and I was sitting on the floor with exactly 0 and 0. The irony was so sharp it almost made me laugh. Almost. I thought about what I would do if this were a movie. In a movie, the scrappy heroine would find a clever way out. She'd make friends with a security guard or discover a secret talent or at least have some basic survival skills to fall back on. My survival skills consisted of making microwave ramen and occasionally remembering to do my laundry. I was doomed. The minutes ticked by. I pressed my back against the cold wall and tried to disappear. I'd spent my whole life trying to be invisible in my own family. Now I wished I could be visible just once to someone who actually cared. And then just when I thought I'd hit absolute rock bottom, a shadow fell over me. I looked up. A tall man stood there. Maybe mid-50s, dressed in an elegant, traditional white that'ly trimmed gray beard and kind dark eyes. He looked like someone important, someone who probably owned several of those fancy stores I couldn't afford to look at, but he wasn't looking at me with judgment or pity. He was looking at me with genuine concern. "Young lady," he said, his English accented but clear. "You look like someone who needs help, and I believe I know exactly how to give it." Every instinct in my body screamed danger. Stranger, foreign country, alone. This was exactly the situation my mother had warned me about my entire life. Don't talk to strangers. Don't trust anyone you don't know. The world is full of people who want to hurt you. But the thing is, my mother had just left me in an airport, so her advice didn't feel particularly reliable at the moment. The man didn't approach too close. He sat down on a bench nearby, leaving a respectful distance between us. Not too far, not too close. Like he understood that I was scared and wanted to give me space. "My name is Khalid al-Rashid," he said calmly. "I work here at the airport. I am the director of guest relations." He paused, letting that sink in. "I noticed you from across the terminal. You reminded me of someone." I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. "Who?" "My daughter." His voice was soft. "She passed away 5 years ago. She was 15. She had the same expression you have right now, like she was trying very hard to be invisible and hoping no one would notice her pain." I didn't know what to say to that. The honesty of it caught me off guard. This wasn't what predators said. This was something else. "I'm sorry," I whispered. He inclined his head. "Thank you." Her name was Fatima. She had a heart condition since birth. We knew she would not live long, but that did not make losing her easier. He looked at me with those steady, kind eyes. "Now, will you tell me why you are sitting on the floor of my airport crying?" Something about the way he said, "my airport," not possessive, but protective, made me trust him. Against every warning I'd ever been given, I started talking. I told him everything about Spencer, about the lie he told my mother, about how she believed him instantly without question, about being marked as a no-show while my family flew to Thailand without me. I told him about having no passport, no money, no phone, no way to contact anyone. I told him about the trust fund I'd overheard Spencer talking about, how I didn't understand what it meant, but I knew it was important. Khalid listened without interrupting. His expression grew more serious with each detail, but he didn't look shocked. He looked like a man who had seen many things in his long career and recognized the shape of what he was seeing now. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. "What happened to you," he said slowly, "is not just cruel. It is potentially criminal. Abandoning a minor in an international airport, especially with deliberate theft of identity documents, is a serious matter under international law." My heart skipped. "Criminal? Very serious?" He nodded. "But more importantly, you are a child who needs help, and I am going to help you." He stood up and extended his hand. "Come with me. Trust me, they will regret this." I hesitated. Every alarm bell in my head was still ringing. But something deeper, something instinctive told me this man was safe. Maybe it was the way he talked about his daughter. Maybe it was the fact that he hadn't tried to touch me or come too close. Maybe I was just desperate. I took his hand. "First," he said as we walked, "we need to get you safe and fed. When did you last eat?" "I don't know." 8 hours? 10? He made a sound of disapproval. That will not do. Come. Khalid walked me through corridors I didn't even know existed. Staff-only areas, administrative offices, behind-the-scenes passages that connected the gleaming public terminal to a world of quiet efficiency. He explained who he was to security guards along the way, and they nodded respectfully, stepping aside. I realized that Khalid didn't personally have the authority to launch some big international investigation, but he knew exactly who to contact and how to make things happen fast. He was connected, respected, and he was on my side. We ended up in an administrative office with soft lighting and comfortable chairs. A woman named Aisha, kind-faced, maybe in her 40s, sat with me while Khalid made phone calls in the next room. "You're safe now, Habib," Aisha said, handing me a plate of food from the staff cafeteria. Chicken, rice, vegetables, warm bread. "Whatever happened, you are safe here." I ate like I'd never seen food before. That chicken sandwich, well, it was more like a full meal than a sandwich. Was the best thing I'd ever tasted. Hunger really is the best seasoning. While I ate, I could hear Khalid on the phone. His voice was calm but carried an authority that made the walls seem thinner. "This is Director Al-Rashid. I need the security footage from gates 20 through 25. Timestamp 1430 to 600. Yes, immediately. We have a minor who was deliberately abandoned. Her documents were stolen by a family member." I stopped chewing. Deliberately abandoned. Hearing someone else say it made it real in a way it hadn't been before. My brother hadn't just left me behind. He'd planned it. An hour later, I saw the proof. Khalid's colleagues had pulled the security footage. They found the exact moment. Spencer unzipping my backpack while I walked toward the bathroom. Reaching inside, removing my passport and boarding pass with a small, deliberate smile. He tucked them into his own bag, zipped it up, and walked away like nothing had happened. Then they showed me footage from the gate. Spencer whispering to my mother, her face twisting with anger. She nodded, lips pressed tight, and turned towards the jet bridge. She didn't look back, not once. Spencer followed her, and just before he disappeared through the door, he glanced back toward the terminal. He was smiling. The footage felt like a punch to the chest. I'd known intellectually that they'd left me, but seeing it, seeing Spencer's smile, seeing my mother's complete lack of hesitation, broke something inside me. "This is very clear evidence," Khalid said, sitting down across from me. "There is no ambiguity. Your brother stole your travel documents and deliberately separated you from your family. Your mother did not verify his story. This is abandonment." I nodded numb. "Now," he continued, "I must ask you something. You mentioned a trust fund. Your brother was concerned about money. Do you know anything about your father's estate?" I shook my head. My mom never talked about it. She just said, "Dad left enough for us to be comfortable." I assumed that meant like the house and stuff. Khalid was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes," he said carefully, "siblings do terrible things to protect what they believe belongs only to them. Sometimes parents leave behind more than houses and furniture. And sometimes those secrets become weapons." I thought about Spencer, about the phone call I'd overheard. "She can't find out once I turn 18. "My brother is turning 18 in 3 months, I said slowly. He was talking about a trust fund, something he could access when he turned 18. Khalid nodded. "When you return home, you should look into your father's documents, ask questions, find out what he left behind and for whom." "You think this is about money?" "I think," he said gently, "that people reveal their true character when they believe no one is watching. Your brother has revealed his. The question now is what you will do with that knowledge." I didn't have an answer. I was 14, exhausted, heartbroken, and sitting in an office thousands of miles from home. What could I possibly do? But somewhere inside me, a small flame of anger was starting to burn. Not just sadness anymore, not just confusion, anger. My father used to call me his hidden gem. I never understood what he meant. Hidden from what? Hidden from whom now sitting in that airport office with college steady gaze on me. I was starting to understand. My father had seen something. He'd known somehow that I would need protection from my own family, and he'd tried in whatever way he could to give me that protection. I just hadn't found it yet. Khalid's phone rang. He answered, spoke rapidly in Arabic, then turned to me with a new expression on his face. The flight to Bangkok is still in the air, he said. They land in approximately 90 minutes. I have contacted the authorities in Thailand and the U.S. Embassy here in Dubai. When that plane lands, your mother and brother will be met by police. My stomach dropped. Police? Child abandonment is a serious crime. International child abandonment with document theft is even more serious. He paused. You have a choice now, Molly. You can let this go. We can arrange for you to simply fly home and you can pretend this never happened. Or he smiled just a little, or you can watch justice happen. And trust me when I tell you they will regret what they have done. I thought about my mother's face on that security footage. The way she didn't even hesitate. The way she didn't look back. I thought about Spencer's smile. I want to watch, I said. Khalid picked up the phone and dialed. His voice was calm, but it carried an electricity that made the air in the room feel charged. This is Director Al-Rashid. I need you to contact the International Police Coordination Office and the U.S. Embassy immediately. We have a confirmed case of child abandonment by an American family. The mother and brother are currently on Emirates Flight 384 to Bangkok. I want authorities waiting when that plane lands. They are not to leave the airport. He looked at me with a small reassuring smile. Now, young lady, let's talk about justice. Quick moment here. If this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, please hit that like button and share it with someone who loves a good story about karma. Your support means the world to me and helps these stories reach more people who need them. Now, back to the story. The next 90 minutes were the longest of my life. Khalid's network moved fast. Within 30 minutes of his phone calls, multiple agencies were involved in my case. Dubai Airport's authority security had documented everything with official timestamps. The U.S. Embassy in Dubai opened an emergency case file for me, a stranded American minor with stolen documents. Thai authorities were notified and began coordinating with police at Bangkok's Suvarnabhumi Airport. Emirates Airlines received an alert about the situation aboard Flight 384. Everything was being recorded. Security footage, witness statements, timeline reconstruction, a paper trail that would be impossible to deny or explain away. An embassy official. A woman named Ms. Patterson with a no-nonsense voice and kind eyes called to speak with me directly. She explained what my mother was facing. Abandoning a minor in a foreign country is a serious international incident. She said your mother could face investigation in both the UAE and Thailand. Your brother, though still a minor at 17, is close enough to 18 that his actions will be scrutinized very seriously. Depending on Arizona juvenile law, he could face charges related to document theft and child endangerment. I listened in a daze. Charges, investigation, international incident. These were words from courtroom dramas, not my actual life. The evidence is clear, Miss Patterson continued. Security footage shows your brother deliberately removing your documents. There's no ambiguity here. The question now is how you want to proceed. How I wanted to proceed. Like I had any idea. I was 14 years old, sitting in an airport office, eating my second plate of chicken and rice, trying to process the fact that my family had committed a crime against me. Part of me still wanted to protect my mother. 17 years of conditioning doesn't disappear in a few hours. I kept thinking, maybe she didn't know. Maybe Spencer tricked her completely. Maybe if I just explained, she'd apologize and everything would go back to normal. But then I remembered the security footage, the way she didn't hesitate, the way she didn't look back. And I remembered all the years before this moment. Every time she believed Spencer over me, every time she took his side without question. Every time I tried to tell her something was wrong and she brushed me off. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was the culmination of a pattern that had been building my entire life. I was just too young, too desperate for her love to see it clearly. The anger I'd felt earlier, that small flame, was growing stronger. Not hot and wild, but cold and steady. The kind of anger that doesn't burn out quickly. While I waited for news from Bangkok, something else happened. Something that changed everything. When the plane landed and Thai authorities detained Spencer and my mother, they confiscated Spencer's phone as evidence. Standard procedure for any investigation involving a minor. And when they examined his messages, they found exactly what Khalid had suspected. Texts to his girlfriend, a girl named Brittany, spanning 3 weeks before our trip. Spencer hadn't acted on impulse. He'd been planning this for almost a month. One text read, "The trip is perfect. I'll get rid of her in Dubai, and Mom will have to pick a side. She always picks me." Another, "Once Molly's out of the picture, I can convince Mom about the money. She trusts me completely." And the most damning one sent just 2 days before we left Phoenix. "Once I turn 18, that trust fund is mine. Molly doesn't even know it exists. And if she runs away in Dubai, she won't have any standing to claim her share." Problem solved. When Khalid read those messages to me, I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Spencer wasn't just cruel, he was calculated. He'd seen me as an obstacle to money I didn't even know existed. And he decided to remove me from the equation permanently if he could manage it. What would have happened to me if Khalid hadn't found me? If I'd stayed lost in that airport, a forgotten American teenager with no documents and no way home? I didn't want to think about it. M. Patterson helped me understand what Spencer had been protecting. My father, before he died 8 years ago, had set up a trust fund for both of his children. The total value was $400,000 split equally between Spencer and me. Spencer's half, $200,000, would become accessible when he turned 18. That was 3 months away. My half, $200,000, was structured differently. Dad had tied it to educational expenses until I turned 25. I couldn't touch the principal, but it would pay for college, graduate school, any training programs I wanted. It was protected, locked away where no one could get to it. Spencer had been trying for months to convince my mother to consolidate the funds. His argument, according to the texts, was that I was difficult and irresponsible and would waste the money on stupid art stuff. He wanted Mom to petition the court to have my share transferred to his control. If I ran away in Dubai, if I caused an international incident that made me look unstable and troubled, it would be so much easier to convince a judge that I couldn't be trusted with my own inheritance. My brother had tried to steal my future, and he'd almost gotten away with it. During a quiet moment between phone calls, Khalid sat down across from me. Aisha had brought tea, sweet, fragrant, nothing like the bitter stuff my mother drank. And we sat in silence for a while. "I have seen family greed before," Khalid said eventually. "In my work, in my country, in every country, money reveals a person's true character. It does not change them. It simply shows who they always were." I nodded, staring into my tea. "But I have also seen something else," he continued. "Your father loved you very much." I looked up. "How do you know that?" "Because he structured your inheritance with protection. He made sure no one could take it from you. Not your mother, not your brother, not anyone." Khalid's eyes were gentle. He saw something coming. He could not name it perhaps, but he felt it. And he tried to protect his daughter from beyond the grave. My throat tightened. I thought about my father. Really thought about him for the first time in years without crying from grief. He used to call me his hidden gem. I'd always thought it was just a cute nickname, something fathers say to their daughters. But now I understood. Hidden from Spencer, hidden from my mother's favoritism, hidden from the family dynamic my father could see forming even when I was 6 years old. He'd known. He'd always known. "Your father believed in you," Khalid said. "Now you must believe in yourself." I didn't know if I could, but sitting there in that office thousands of miles from home, I decided to try. The screen on the wall flickered to life. A live feed from Bangkok's airport. Arrivals gate, harsh fluorescent lighting. Officials in uniform waiting. An American woman in a dark suit stood with them, tablet in hand. That must be the embassy representative. Colleague checked his watch. The plane has landed. Passengers will begin deplaning in 4 minutes. My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. 4 minutes. In 4 minutes, my mother would learn that her golden son was made of something far less precious than gold. I leaned forward and watched the screen, waiting for 2 familiar faces to emerge. The first passengers came through the gate looking tired and rumpled from the long flight. Business travelers checking their phones, families corralling children, an elderly couple walking slowly arm in arm, and then I saw them. My mother emerged first, adjusting her carry-on bag, looking around the terminal with the slightly dazed expression of someone who'd just crossed multiple time zones. Her hair was neat, her clothes unwrinkled. She looked like a woman on vacation, ready to enjoy herself. Spencer followed right behind her, laughing at something on his phone. Actually laughing. Not a care in the world, not a single thought about the sister he'd abandoned 12 hours ago in a foreign airport. They looked so normal, so relaxed, like they hadn't done anything wrong at all. 2 Thai police officers and the U.S. Embassy representative approached them calmly. I watched my mother's face shift. First confusion, then concern, then the beginning of real fear. The embassy woman spoke first. I couldn't hear the words on the video feed, but I could see the effect they had. She was explaining the situation, telling Patricia Underwood that her daughter had been found abandoned at Dubai International Airport, that authorities had been contacted, that this was now an official international incident. My mother's first instinct was defense. I could see her mouth moving rapidly. Even without sound, I knew what she was saying. There must be a mistake. She wanted to stay. She was having a tantrum. She said she wanted to be left alone. Spencer stood beside her, nodding along, playing the supportive, concerned older brother. She's always been dramatic. She probably did this for attention. You know how she is. The Thai officer produced a tablet and pressed play. I watched my mother watch the security footage. I watched her see her son unzipping my backpack while I walked away, trusting him. I watched her see him remove my passport with that small deliberate smile. I watched her see him tuck it into his own bag like it was nothing. The color drained from her face from flushed pink to pale to completely utterly white. Spencer tried to speak. I could see him gesturing, his mouth moving fast, probably saying it was just a prank, just a joke. He was going to fix it later. The same excuses he'd used his whole life. The officer swiped to the next screen. Spencer's text messages to Brittany. My mother read the words her son had written. I couldn't see the screen from the video feed, but I didn't need to. I already knew what was there. Once Molly's out of the picture, I can convince Mom about the money. That trust fund is mine. She doesn't even know it exists. Patricia Underwood's hand went to her mouth. Her whole body seemed to crumple like someone had cut her strings. Spencer's mask finally fell. I'd watched my brother charm his way out of trouble my entire life. Teachers, coaches, neighbors, our mother. Everyone fell for his smile, his confidence, his easy excuses. He'd never faced a consequence he couldn't talk his way around. But you can't charm your way out of evidence. You can't smile at a security camera and make it unsee what it recorded. You can't explain away text messages written in your own words. Spencer's face went from confident to confused to scared in the span of about 30 seconds. His shoulders hunched, his hands started shaking. He tried to step back like he could physically retreat from this situation, but the officers were already on either side of him. I thought I'd feel satisfaction watching this triumph, maybe some kind of victory. Instead, I just felt tired and sad and relieved that it was finally over. The embassy representative held up a tablet and suddenly I was looking at my mother's face on a video call. She could see me. I could see her. She looked destroyed. Mascara running down her cheeks. Eyes red and swollen. Older than I'd ever seen her look. Molly. Her voice cracked. Baby, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Spencer told me. He said you wanted. I thought you didn't check. My voice came out steadier than I expected. You didn't ask me. You didn't come find me in the bathroom and ask what happened. You just believed him. I know. I know. And I'm so sorry. You always believe him. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't crying. I was just stating facts. You've always believed him. My whole life you've chosen him over me. Every single time. She sobbed harder. Spencer behind her stared at the floor. Dad would never have left me. I said quietly. He knew. He always knew what Spencer was. That's why he protected my inheritance, because he knew you wouldn't. My mother flinched like I'd slapped her. I could have said more. I could have listed every grievance, every moment she'd failed me. Every time I'd needed her and she wasn't there. But what was the point? She knew. She'd always known. Somewhere deep down, she'd just chosen not to see it. I'm done, I said. I'm done being invisible. I'm done being the one who doesn't matter. The embassy representative gently took the tablet back. The call ended. I sat in silence for a long moment. Aisha put a hand on my shoulder. Khalid said nothing, just sat nearby, a steady presence. The legal consequences were announced over the next hour. Spencer would be detained and returned to the U.S. under escort. His phone kept his evidence. His case would be reviewed by juvenile authorities in Arizona for child endangerment and theft. He was 17, old enough to face serious consequences, young enough that it wouldn't completely destroy his future, probably. My mother faced potential charges as well, but given that she hadn't known about Spencer's full plan, and given my willingness to cooperate with authorities, she would likely receive a formal warning and mandatory family counseling instead of prosecution. The trust fund situation would be reviewed by a court-appointed guardian. My inheritance was safe. More than safe. It was now protected by legal documentation that would make it impossible for anyone to touch. And Spencer had pinned everything on his athletic future. Division I football scholarship, starting quarterback, dreams of going pro. That scholarship required a clean record. This incident, documented, investigated, internationally coordinated, would follow him. Even if charges were eventually reduced or dropped, the record would exist. Coaches would ask questions. Background checks would find answers. Everything he'd been trying to protect by eliminating me, his money, his future, his status, was now at risk. And he'd done it to himself with his own words, his own actions, his own arrogant certainty that he'd never get caught. Karma, it turns out, has excellent timing. I really should have gotten popcorn. Before I left the office, Khalid arranged my return home. The U.S. Embassy had issued emergency travel documents, standard procedure for stranded American minors, so I could fly without my stolen passport. Emirates upgraded me to first class. Airline staff would escort me the entire way. Khalid handed me his business card. Old-fashioned, cream-cold, elegant. If you ever need anything, he said, anything at all, you call this number. It will always reach me. Why? I asked. Why did you help me? You didn't have to. He was quiet for a moment because you reminded me of Fatima, my daughter. She was kind like you, quiet like you. Overlooked like you. He paused. She would have wanted me to help someone who needed it, and you needed it. I hugged him. It was probably inappropriate. I barely knew him. We'd met hours ago. We came from completely different worlds. But in that moment, he felt more like family than anyone I shared blood with. You are stronger than you know. Khalid said, your father was right. You are a hidden gem, but you will not stay hidden much longer. The first-class flight from Dubai to Phoenix was 18 hours of surreal luxury. Warm towels, gourmet meals on actual plates, a seat that turned into a bed with real sheets. Flight attendants who treated me like royalty after the airline briefed them on my situation. I kept thinking, this is the most expensive thing that's ever happened to me. And I didn't pay a single cent. There's probably a lesson there about how sometimes the worst experiences lead to unexpected blessings. But honestly, I was too tired to philosophize. I just ate my fancy salmon dinner and watched 3 movies and slept like the dead. When I landed in Phoenix, my grandmother, Nora, was waiting at arrivals. She looked older than I remembered. It had been almost a year since I'd seen her, but her hug was exactly the same. Strong and warm and smelling like lavender and old books. "I've got you," she said. "You're safe now, sweetheart. I've got you." She drove me to her house in Tucson, not back to my mother's place in Phoenix. That was deliberate. I wasn't ready to face my mother yet, and Grandma Nora understood without me having to explain. My mother had returned from Thailand immediately after the incident. Her vacation was over before it started. She was facing counseling appointments, legal interviews, and the wreckage of a family she'd helped destroy through willful blindness. Spencer was being processed through the juvenile system in Phoenix. He'd be home eventually, but not for a while. And when he did come home, it wouldn't be to live with me. For the first time in 17 years, I didn't have to exist in my brother's shadow. The relief was so profound, it made me dizzy. A week after I got back, my mother came to Tucson to see me. She looked like she'd aged 10 years. Hollow eyes, trembling hands, clothes that didn't quite fit right. The polished hospital administrator was gone. In her place was a woman who'd finally been forced to see the truth about her family. She didn't make excuses. She didn't try to explain away what happened or minimize Spencer's actions. She just sat across from me at Grandma Nora's kitchen table and said, "I failed you. I don't know how to fix it, but I want to try if you'll let me." I looked at her for a long time. This woman who had chosen my brother over me for as long as I could remember, who had believed his lies without question, who had gotten on an airplane and left me stranded in a foreign country, but also this woman who had worked double shifts to keep a roof over our heads, who had lost her husband young and done her best to hold a family together, who was flawed and broken and finally willing to admit it. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said honestly. "Not yet." "Maybe not ever," she nodded, tears streaming down her face. But I continued, "I'm willing to try. If you actually do the work, therapy, honesty, real change, not just saying sorry and expecting everything to go back to normal." "I will," she whispered. "I promise. I will." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. Spencer's fate was simpler. Probation until age 21, mandatory counseling for manipulative behavior, community service hours that would take years to complete, and a permanent notation on his record that disqualified him from his Division I scholarship. He ended up living with Grandma Nora, too, eventually separate from me, in the guest room on the other side of the house. Our mother couldn't look at him the same way anymore, and he needed somewhere to go. Last I heard, years later, he was working as a mechanic's assistant at an auto shop in Tucson. Honest work, humble work, a far cry from his quarterback dreams, but maybe exactly what he needed. I don't feel satisfaction about his downfall. I don't feel triumph. I just feel a quiet relief that he can't hurt me anymore. 2 weeks after I got back from Dubai, Grandma Nora sat me down with a box of my father's documents. "I've been keeping these for you," she said. "Waiting until you were old enough, until it was time." Inside, I found everything. The trust fund paperwork, bank statements, legal documents, and at the very bottom, a letter in my father's handwriting dated 1 week before he died. He'd written it to me. He knew even then that something was wrong in our family. He'd seen Spencer's behavior, the manipulation, the cruelty, the way he treated me when adults weren't watching. He couldn't name it exactly, but he felt it. So, he'd structured my inheritance with extra protection, locked it away where no one could touch it until I was 25 and fully independent. He'd even added a separate life insurance policy, designated entirely to me, not out of favoritism, he wrote, but because he knew Spencer would be taken care of by our mother. I was the one who needed protecting. The letter ended with words I'll never forget. Molly, my hidden gem. You will face storms in this family, but you are built to weather them. Be patient, be strong, and know that your father loved you more than words can say. I believe in you. Love always, Dad. The total inheritance when I finally accessed it at 25 was $600,000. $200 from the original trust fund, $400 from the life insurance. Enough to change my life completely. I used it wisely. Started my import-export business specializing in artisan goods from the Middle East because sometimes the universe has a sense of humor. Built it into something real and successful and entirely my own. I stayed in contact with Khaled. He attended my college graduation standing in the back row wiping his eyes. Every year on the anniversary of the Dubai incident, I sent him flowers. He sends me books about business and philosophy and finding your strength in dark times. My relationship with my mother healed slowly, carefully, with clear boundaries and regular therapy and honest conversations that sometimes hurt, but always helped. We're not best friends. We probably never will be, but we're real with each other now, and that's more than we ever had before. Thank you so much for watching. More of my most gripping stories are already on your screen. Click one now and don't miss the best part. You will love it. See you in the next.